Okay. So we're live on Facebook and YouTube. I'm going to put on the intro so we can allow people time to come in and I can share out to the network. These shows resonate. Please share. We would appreciate it. Oops. Okay, here we go. Let me get Franco up here. I know you don't all want to be looking at my ugly face the whole time. So let me get him up here. Hang on. I'm always excited to talk to Franco. I've been watching his session and his series, the one that he just put out yesterday. I'd highly recommend that one. I'd highly recommend all of them. Let's see. All right. Start video, YouTube. What's happening, Franco?
Yeah, good to see you.
It's good to see you. I feel like I've been talking to you. I've been watching you. I was watching you. Well, the one you did yesterday was it yesterday? Yeah. Because I finished watching it a while ago.
Yeah, Saturday. It was Saturday.
Saturday, yeah. So it was Saturday. Yeah, I had this huge thing came in, and it came in direct, and then I went to Robert Sepper, that anthropologist that I follow, that does all these great videos about a lot of stuff that's not talked about from a very neutral standpoint. And he had just released one, and it fell right in line with what I was getting. And then I turned you on, and it was right in the middle of yours, where you had the diagram about the Luciferian, and the two different programs kind of playing, and the way you were, and it fit right in. It was a huge day for me, and I know from watching your stuff that the 23rd through the 29th is a big period for us right now. But
Yes.
when I came out of it, so today I was watching it today, and I've been fielding all the grounders that my higher aspects are sending me, which is this seemingly this thing that I'm watching that you explained so well. This is what I'm leading up to see if you can elaborate on it. But it talking about there was a split. There was a split, but there was also a factor of a more extreme polarities, I guess.
Right.
And just the way you talked about it, because what's been coming into my field as I'm, approaching the work that I'm doing, is to obviously, try to be in a space of no charge and neutrality, with respect given to all viewpoints, obviously. And I'm doing my best not to take any stance other than I am soul and the human is the hero. But watching people get so caught up in not so much the fear-based programming, but and I called it before the savior-based programming. That's probably not the right description, but it's still a really sharp, distinctive, to me, charge or frequency of separation. And I guess my question is twofold. One, which they normally are twofold or threefold. So, but one, is it, and I'm talking about right now in this realm where we stand, is there not something innate in all of us? I could just be naive. All 7.7 billion of us that wants to align, that wants to have a heaven on earth. Is it not in all of us at this time, or are some people playing a certain role that's never going to enter their mind?
Well, everybody has an innate driver within them, or a level of consciousness that really wants to be part of a transformation. It depends on the role that it will take. Sometimes it will take the role that it will play the polarization for a little longer and much more extreme, to the point to assist others to awaken. Because right now, if you really look at the dynamics of everything that's playing out, especially what we just said about the polarity, or what we can call, what do you call it, the next level of separation. So this we had the separation between the organic 3D, 5D, both brand new platforms and everything else, and the whole construct in it. But now what's has started coming in, or already has started coming in, and it's more intensified between the 33rd and 29th, is to create other levels of separation. But it's not a separation or a split, if you want to call it that. It's not a split in the sense of, okay, you go play here, you go play there. What this energy is doing, what these codes are doing, what's been activated in the operating system is that, okay, you're not done playing in the fear mode. You're not done playing with all of the other construct that's going on. Then you're going to be isolated to that pool of energy for its complete intensity, and even elevated even further. The ones that are actually saying, okay, I'm choosing to step out of this because I my awareness is that, there's more to this, and I don't have to give power to all the what we call the regular media inputs and all of the other fear, because not everybody's afraid.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, it's a larger portion of it, but even that's changing, and we've talked about that. But so that the whole thing is, whatever you are in, you are now in those pools of energy without blending it, so that you will feel either one. So either you feel, okay, I'm outside of this, because what you'll notice is that the level of engagement, the level of interest, the level of even putting any focus of that becomes less and less even interesting at all. In fact, whenever you're exposed to it, it's almost like, woo, it really feels off. Where the others that are choosing to play in the fear says, okay, we're not going to give you the soothing effect by having the balance from other people. We're going to separate the channels to a point so that when you're in that soup, you're all together in that soup, so that you really, really experience the intensity of the fear, the intensity of feeling disempowered, the intensity of feeling that I have no say in any matter, that something's going to kill me and I have to be in survival. And in some of those categories, because there's really 3 sections to it, or 3 splittings that occurred. So you have that extreme, and then there's the one that is actually basically the savior, like you call it the savior. It's like, okay, I'm all right, I'm afraid, but I'm waiting for, these individuals in different positions right now to go and get rid of all of these bad people and fix this and fix that, whatever it is. So that's the category kind of in the middle. So the purpose of that is so that you actually get to experience fully without the blending. So what you're going to feel is like that cluster of consciousness with that cluster of energy is so unappealing if you're in this level. And the other one will say, if you're talking the extreme, will say, oh, they talk about, these people that are being arrested, whatever else that's going on, the disclosure and whatever else. And the far left is going to say, oh, that's freaking bullshit, whatever it is, we're just in this thing and we're a mess, right? They won't even acknowledge that. But in the middle, they give a lot of power to that. And the other one's going, we're doing this together. And we're doing it because we're changing it at a conscious level and self-realization rather than. So that's really what the design of this what we call energetic split that occurred. But it's not only energetic, it's encodement and it's an isolation. So it's like somebody goes in and dials, and we did this collectively. We dialed in, say, okay, you're on such and such a channel, you're on such and such a channel, and you're on such and such a channel. But you're still all within the same, but each one holds a very integral frequency and cluster. So your attention will be focused. So whatever your idea of what is, you will only see that. The rest of it, you really don't even pay attention. You discount. So the people that have actually been working on themselves and are on the forefront of making some huge changes kind of see that as, oh, it's a game that's playing out there. Let them play, whatever. Yeah. We're not going to put so much attention about right, wrong, good, bad, or anything of that nature, because realistically, you see the dance, but you also understand that the dance is necessary for them to go through that saturation point or get to the point of whatever. Now, the question always comes up is like everybody going together at some point. Well, yes and no, because the option is all available. Is everybody signed up for that? Everybody would love to, but not everybody would be able to at this point, but that can change at any point. So, and that's why there's other provisions been established, provisions where, yeah, they can leave the planet. There's other provisions that in one way or another that we can, have drop-in souls come in and new upgraded, what you call human entities coming in, and then create an alignment within the body construct and so forth. So those options are there. What gets exercised and what really takes place, we're going moment by moment to decide, and each individual has the decision to make along the way, and from a higher perspective viewpoint. So, because some just say, okay, I came just for this part of the ride. I'm not really interested in the rest of the ride. And because, it was part of the ride that I wanted. It's like going to an amusement park and say, I'm just going for the freaking most challenging roller coaster. But once that I'm done, I've done my roller coaster. I'm not interested in all the other stuff. I'm going to leave. Right. So that's the thing that, so that roller coaster part is the massive polarity, the massive disconnect and so forth. And that's why we talked about, I wanted to share this a long time ago regarding the operating systems, because there's a lot of misunderstanding of the different operating systems that exist. There's the human pure design operating system, and then the introduction of what we call the Lucifer operating system. So that's been adopted from different hybrids that were at different places, but the introduction only happened 10,000 years ago to planet Earth for the fourth time, okay? Because the time before that was in the times of Atlantis, and then there were two other times it was introduced. Now, each time it went through those sequences, it was never allowed to be introduced until there was a self-governance that occurred. So when the retooling happened, there was 1,000 years of stabilizing, then a period of time for governance, and then through that self-governance, and then going through that. So we're going through that stage now again. Once all of this sifting goes through, then there's going to be a group that will be made up of us. And some of the overseers may be some of our brother, sister souls from a higher consciousness, but they will not sit on the same platforms with us, but will assist us, so that groups of higher consciousness, awareness individuals that are humans, pure humans, on the planet, people like yourself and others that really got to a point of clarity and neutrality and so forth, will come together and create a group, and within this group discuss and also lay out, using whatever is available as that stuff that's been stifled and whatever else, how do we now introduce a new way of life? How do we go through the deprogramming process of the masses? So what it is that there'll be 1,000 years, it could be less, I'm just saying now, because I don't have the specifics on that, a period of time where a group is established of higher consciousness people that will eventually displace all of the existing all the existing leaders and so forth. Now, the leadership would be not of a demanding, it would be a very open platform. So in essence, remember how they have summits and they have all these G20s and whatever else, and then it's all behind closed doors and whatever else. This would be open. It would be live streamed. So people would actually see the discussions, what is being brought up, and then it's open to receive certain suggestions and so forth. And it's bringing in scientists, bringing in really open-minded, say, medical people that have really steady, I'm not talking about just the conventional stuff, bringing those technologies, others that have worked with different deeper understandings that will say, okay, that's work a plan out and let's start to roll it out. And that's the next phase, but that'll come along. Could even start way later in the end of the year to start bringing the people together. Now, I was told about this several years ago from the beings that I was working with, and they had said originally, and I said, well, do you know who's going to organize all of this stuff? Like, how is this all going to come about? And he said, well, the clarity will come along. And they kind of said, well, you can go and make sure that you get it started and oversee it and then have all these people from all over the world coming in. And I'm going, yeah, really, come on, sort of thing. It's like, this is several years ago, because I could never, from a human perspective, I couldn't even see that even coming into play. But that's not what I'm saying here. Right now, it's been reminded, and it's coming very clearly, this is the next step. Right now, what's there in place at the moment with the different role players is to destabilize the existing system. So it creates an opening for the system to go through a rebuild. And the systems will be rebuilt with conscious people, with people that have a higher level of awareness of how things work and how we can make it work, so that it actually aligns with us in the way that we really choose to experience planet Earth and really our own physicalities. So all of the stuff, the craziness, the polarities and everything else is really to create the destabilization. And we're seeing it already all over.
It makes sense. Yeah, it makes sense. Yeah, and just so everyone knows, I mean, not that, we're anything special over here. We're all special. but
we are.
But Morgan and I have received that. And I'd say probably, and more than once in the last 2 or 3 months. Just exactly what you said about these panels or committees and that the total transparency. But yeah, you're right. It is showing itself, and it makes sense to me that you would have that destabilization or just taking it apart. You see it. I've never seen in the 8 years I've been on social media, I've never seen so many people making these statements of, if you don't believe this, or you don't believe Trump or vaccines or Q or whatever, if you don't believe it, then unfriend me now. And I'm like going, what? And maybe I'm in that left group over there and I'm just kind of watching it, but I can see what you're saying. You're going to get both polarities, in a sense, I guess, are going to have the agitation. Neither one of them are going to hold. So that only makes sense. But I really like the way you did this last one. I like all of your series. And I just want to tell everybody who's live with us today, we got 200 plus people on all platforms, and that watch on the replay, that this series, Advancing Consciousness, is incredible. There's well over 20 productions on it. Franco and Kimberly are doing this for free, and I'm just putting it out there for everybody to support them on what they're doing, because we still haven't made the full transition to a money-free society. So I know he's busting his ass, and both of them are, and I just want to put that out there. But this one that you did, that I saw yesterday, which you did Saturday, and you were specifically talking about some things that people do get polarized about. Just the name Lucifer, just some of the names that you brought up. And it was interesting because I came across Robert Sepper's, which was actually called The Fall of Lucifer, this 29-minute production. And it was so weird. Well, it's not, because it was all laid out for me. But he was talking about how, if you go back, we're talking to the most, the civilizations that we can trace back to, say, even like the Ice Age, that there was almost like two factions. One, the serpent, which is, on one hand, and the other one was the eagle. And you see it all through the flags and the different coat of arms and all. But the point was, regardless of what they were called, was that we have gotten to a point where that both sides had infiltrated the other side to such intense and minute degrees that, yeah, it's like a big convoluted soup mess. And so this is what we're pulling ourselves out of. And the way that you'd explained it on this last series that you did, the last episode, was really, and it's in the middle of the show, is a really good explanation for people, to me, in my opinion, that are honestly and actively seeking to 0 point and get to a no charge, because I think we all know that that's the place to be, whether we can get there or not.
Yeah, and eventually you will, because I mean, this is the interesting thing about it, Todd, is that the part that has a difficult time to go to 0 point is the very part that it actually keeps us away from the 0 point. And that is the ego operating system, or what we call the operating software within our mind, right? So that's going to try to do as much as possible to just not only discredit it, but to make it very difficult for us to get to the 0 point, because it's going to try to use every emotional charge possible under the sun just to keep us distracted as long as possible. But the higher aspect of ourselves fully integrates with 0 point, neutrality, oneness. That's very, very fundamental. It's in its very core programming operating system, because a true human operating system is 0 point, oneness, neutrality.
Yeah.
And there is always going to be a little level of polarity, but we're not talking what we're experiencing, right, wrong, good, bad. It's just, let me try this at this frequency, this at this frequency, and just kind of experience. But it's not a polarity where the two fight each other, or you're creating such a separation, right, that we've experienced in that regard. So we say, okay, let me make this choice, have this experience, let's see what that looks like. But you're not going to judge the experience. You're just going to make an experience that is of a lower consciousness. And then you're going to say, okay, now I introduce the higher consciousness, and you kind of create a balance back and forth, and that's what you're experiencing. That it's very different than the polarization that we've been experiencing of the black, white, or dark light, all of that other stuff, right? And the thing is, we have to understand that these are operating systems. Okay, so deep inside of us, we have the true designed operating system that is inherent. I mean, it's not been damaged. Much of it may have gone dormant and possibly a little outdated in a certain way, but that's been taken care of at this point in time. However, the other stuff that's overriding it is the part that's becoming destabilized now. And this is the thing, because the way that operating system, even in the hybrids that are in our positions, you actually need low vibration. You need emotional charges. You need judgment, anger, fear. And this is why the whole media, everything is based around fear. Fear of everything. You can't even trust yourself if you actually get into the depth of it. You can't trust yourself. You can't trust others. You can't trust families. You can't, everybody's trying to kill you, get to you, or whatever it is. Everybody's trying to take advantage of one another. There's these viruses that are going to kill you. The environment's going to kill you. It's all of this stuff. And It needs all of that. That's why it's projecting it. And as long as we're in that projection, that's the only way the operating system could stay intact. It's actually the juice. If you watch The Matrix, the people put into whatever those cells and whatever else. We're going to make it a movie night. We're going to watch it again. I haven't watched it in years. So, I'm just, but I'm not in favor of all the violence in it, but that's okay. It's just kind of the message that's really key. But the thing is, the push is to keep us in the lowest state, to keep feeding that operating system to work. Now it's getting harder and harder because what's happening, the population was easier to sway in a disempowered hierarchy. You have no say. You need to be afraid of everything. You need to judge each other. We have to compare each other. We need to, even the sports were designed as win, lose, all of that. That still feeds that thing. And then you have some people that love certain people and hate the others because they just lost or won or whatever it is. You see, it's reflective all over the place. So that was necessary for that stability. Now, of course, the vibration of the planet, the vibrations that we are being triggered within ourselves, the vibrations of the frequency and the spectrums of light coming from our sun and the energy come from the galaxy is making that operating system fall apart. It's destabilizing it. So they ramp it up further to see if we can stay more in the fear part, right? So that but the thing is, it's not across the board. We have so many people that are already stepped out of playing that role. And remember, one spark of light of high vibration negates 20,000 darker or lower vibration individuals emanating those frequencies. So this is why it's getting a little bit more difficult and so forth. Now, of course, the caveat to all of this was this introduction, what we call the disclosure and the spiritual world. And I don't mean the pure ones that we're already crossed over to the sense of saying, oh, I see this as the game or whatever else. If you noticed, we went through a phase, and that's kind of changing right now. Went through a phase where, people start to discover things, and then the emphasis has been light, dark, good, bad, evil, whatever it is. So that was actually being used to fuel the old operating system, what we call the Lucifer operating system, because the fact that all of a sudden the people that started to open their eyes, who do I blame? Who's responsible for this? And, oh, we got to hate those. We got to go kill them. We got to do this. We got to do that. They're the bad ones. Well, the thing they don't realize is that they're still feeding that part of it. So this is why the neutrality is so powerful, because in neutrality, you're in pure love, because source is neutral or 0 point, because that's the field of creation, and love is part of that field of creation. So when we get to the point of actually seeing the beautiful dance and loving and appreciating it, your vibration is so high, you're beaming all over the place with everybody being ignited in different parts, that then all of that starts to dissolve. Because the thing is, we're not looking for who to blame. We're not looking who to go out after, or to see that there's the dark and light. Because you've heard, a lot of these spiritual people, when they go, oh, I'm the light, I'm in the dark. Well, what is true light? True light is not a full separation spectrum of saying, I am just beaming the highest that can be, and these are the dark, and I got to neutralize the dark. No, it's a matter of going into a holistic full spectrum, and then that actually dissolves, because now you're not creating the separation. You're not going into a beam of light and splitting it with filters.
Right.
Dark light, dark light, dark light. Well, it's not that. It's actually full lens. You're opening and you're seeing the full spectrum. And then the two sides actually start to merge, because it tends to be pulled into the full spectrum, because it's almost like a magnet. You're missing components of the light, or what we call spectrum, full spectrum, which carries the highest consciousness and the highest creative abilities. So you're bringing all of it together. So that merging, and this is why the oneness, 0 point, and all that stuff is very powerful. And just to throw something else on, next Saturday, May the 2nd, we actually are doing a meditation, a global meditation on love and appreciation of the dance of life that we have here, which is the very main purpose of it, is to see the perfection with everything and with love of whatever the game is, because then you're tapping into the full spectrum and let all those other components be part of it, so it supports that whole spectrum without still saying, oh, you know, because some of the meditations can be easily directed and say, well, we're going to be on this side and we're going to phase, or, you know, do it so that we can diminish the dark. Well, as long as you're still seeing that as bad, or that it's a bad facet or a dark facet of it, you're not coming completed. So you're going to go in with the most powerful tools we have, which is love, really, appreciation, love, which is 0 point neutrality, all of that, and then allow all of that to come into play. So we're doing that on Saturday, 2 p.m. Eastern time, which is next Saturday, or this coming Saturday, actually. And so anyways, if anybody wants to
I saw that yesterday. Yeah. That's and I saw that other one. I think you've done another one since then, but it was very good. Actually, I know you have, because I watched part of it. At a second meditation that you had done in the past couple of 2-3 weeks. One of the things that I picked up on too, in this gift of sequential communication from the universe that involved Robert Sepper and you, was you were talking about, and I hope I have this right. You were talking about what you mentioned earlier when this program was first introduced. I think that would be the Luciferian program. That and you started talking about hybridization, and you were basically explaining that in order for it to take hold and get some traction and become a force, you know, that there had to be, I guess, in so many words, an embodiment, you know, on the earth, you know. And so that was a very, you know, important thing. And then I started thinking about what you were saying a minute ago, and I look at a lot of the brothers and sisters out there, and regardless of what level they're at or I'm at, there's always like this, I hope this is going right. I hope this is going to happen. And I think what I got from it was what you're saying, and what I've observed too, especially with these young people, is that in the same fashion, it's an inverse, you know, example, but this new program, so to speak, I guess, is being embodied, and the numbers have hit a relevant point, if not a tipping point already, and you know, we can kind of count on that. Is there anything that I didn't say right there, or you could add to it?
No. The thing is, we have the capacity. We are at a point where the tipping point is already established, but it's not fully active, because some of the ones that have gone to the right, if you want to call it that, going to what you can call the higher vibration and so forth, is still missing part of their neutrality and the fuller spectrum. So even though they're no longer feeding so much the dark in the same what they call the lower frequencies, that as long as they're still only that part, they're still going to be pulled. So that part of it is, so even if there's the members of that you know, full spectrum, 0 point, whatever else, individuals that are closer to it, they're going through that process of allowing the rest of it to come into play. So the direction we're actually guiding the direction of how you know, things are going to move forward with that. I just lost what I was just going to say. There was something you mentioned, and then I was going to add to that.
Well, just that
you said a moment ago before I got on. I mean, I started talking to you again.
Well, I was just talking about how there was kind of a similarity, an inverse example of how they couldn't institute that Luciferian program till they had enough boots on the ground.
Right, the hybrids. Yes.
Mm.
Yeah. So what was discovered? Because I mean, I looked at all of this, okay, from back ends and whatever else, because I was aware of this program from a very long time, and but it was never the time to say anything about it, because people still had to go through whatever. You're correct, because when they wanted to introduce it, there's two things I wanted to say about that. The actual full embodiment of that operating system, the Lucifer operating system, would not be able to function on planet Earth, because the energies of planet Earth and the physicalities of humans, and the design of how the humans were encoded would not be able to operate. It just couldn't. And they couldn't actually stay, because they never stayed on the planet. They would come and visit for short durations, because it was very uncomfortable for them to be, it didn't support them. It's like, we don't have the life force to be able to do that. So what they ended up doing is saying, okay, we still need the human bodies to do this, but we can't bring our bodies here. So we need to come up with something. So then they came up with taking humans and creating hybrids, meaning that they put their body encodements within. So they, even though that we're already hybrids of 12 different species, but then you took that human cluster of 12 and you turn off a few things. You had to turn it off, in a sense, to be able to, and then brought in the operating system that they engaged, and then created a blend. So that's how they created these hybrid humans. And these hybrid humans were the ones that actually were the instigator activator, because they were the ones that could be used. And of course, there's free will to that, used to take it on and say, okay, you're going to follow the agenda we tell you. And the agenda is to create all of these changes. And that happened the first time at 10,000 years. And then they've upgraded along the way at 5,000, 3,500, 1,500, and 300 years ago. So those are the stages where they've come in and upgraded the operating system, not only for the hybrids, but also within the matrix construct, right?
Yeah, which is that's a really interesting thing to me. It connects a lot of dots, because if you look at all the different narratives out there, and I'm talking like Sumerian and this one and that one and all that, if you look at the indigenous and the aboriginal, even the Egyptian, you have these people from the stars visiting, and that's what they did. So it's interesting to me that, obviously we play in an energetic field, but the physicality of it had to fall in line with the energetics. You don't just, you could, that's what I got from when you were talking on Saturday, that they actually had to have the boots on the ground to do it, and then turning it around. We've arrived to that point now. It just looks a little different. We're not interbreeding, but we're have young kids coming in that have more aligned DNA, and then of course the inner work and the conversions and the transformations and the individuals are making, which is great, because that makes it easy. We don't have to go out and do anything but work on ourselves. I wanted to ask you too about this past, I guess it would have been this past weekend, and if I look at my what's today, Monday, 26th, 25th, so you said the 23rd, so that would have been Friday. So just as a quick example, not because it's about us over here, it actually involves a few people. We did a special show last night on my day off with Om McManus, and what happened was there was 4 or 5 of us that basically received the same information at the same time. It involved an elliptical spaceship. It involved Soul Tribe gathering into the spaceship. It involved like a ring or halo over the heads that was some type of component that was spinning and kicking in gear. And it also involved communication with Arcturian star family. So I don't know if there's any relevance to that, not to the particulars of the Arcturians, but just as was something going on. This started on the 23rd. Was something happening in terms of more clarity and also more continuity in between, souls on the earth experiencing the same thing, and that information aligning?
Yes. So part of this is not only the polarity part, but the ones that are actually have been in a position of being ready and open. There is much more communication that's been established with the brother sister souls that are kind of overseeing, because you have to understand we're being overseen to facilitate us, but never ever, because one of the things is okay, we have to still be the boots on the ground, like you say, and how can we work with you? So at that point in time, having those experiences, because while this is one of the other parts, and I'm glad you brought that up, because the other part that came into the equation of the segregating or separating these clusters of energy is the ones that are certain particular clusters actually had a more intimate connection, not only in consciousness, but a meeting of like you said, the could be the Arcturian plane and whatever groups that have selected to work with the various groups. So they would present. So when you're having that experience, it's really showing that they're not only doing that kind of a download, but there's a communication. There's an exchange that's going on, an exchange of extracting your experience of what you're doing as the boots on the ground, and their experience from a grander viewpoint of like we're looking at whatever is happening in the world, but also what we can provide you. So you may have even felt the more energetic, comforting, and much more feeling like more of a superhuman in a sense, in the sense of elevating in that regards, but also much more clarity and of a possible direction, or even starting to change. How can we see this coming together now? How can we work together? Because this is all about working together too. So it's just them coming into at this point in time. I know with me, it's like it happens very often. But it's great that you said that, because more people right now, especially with, like I said, the segregation of the energies, it's more fine-tuned instead of blending, because people have a tendency to go up and down all over the place, right? Depending, especially if you've got programs kicking off, and we get engaged with what we see or hear around us. You know, we may be at higher vibration for a period of time, and then all of a sudden something gets in, and all of a sudden it's like, oh, you know, and you go down, or you, oh, how could that be? Those idiots, blah, 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 whatever. But it's just a little excerpt of that kicking in. So right now, that is actually being, how can I say, held in a way where you're not easily to slide into it and kind of always see the bigger picture, and that way that the communication can be provided much more clearly. And this is great that you guys did that. So there is this window between the 23rd and 29th that we're in right now. I think today's what, 27. Okay. So we have a couple of more days of that. And then there's a very specific energy coming in, a very different energy coming in on the 30th. And then we have some new stuff coming in on the 1st.
Well, before we get to those parts, I just want to ask you real quick. I don't want to interrupt you.
No, go ahead.
What can any of us do to maximize the potential of the last 2 or 3 days of this period? Is there anything that we can do to enhance the opportunity?
Yeah, the first thing that comes up is slow down. And when I mean slow down, you know, a lot of us are in, you know, lockdown, whatever you want to call it at this point, which is kind of in, you know, it's very purposeful in many ways, but we still find that we get restless and busy, whatever else. So in fact, it's taking some quiet time to really just be with yourself. And meditation will be helpful, but what you're doing is allowing that communication to be established, because as long as our mind is going, then we won't, you know, be able to really engage with what's coming in. It may be still flowing in, but we don't actually make use of it, or, I mean, it's always there afterwards. But the thing is we're not going to be able to use it with the force that is coming in, or the intensity is coming in. So I would suggest, you know, to get quiet, focus on the breath and so forth, and be open to the energies coming in. And you can feel it within what resonates. You know, we're not opening ourselves to anything that's coming in. The thing is, one thing to keep in mind, if the energy creates any form of fear, there's 2 questions to ask. Is this fear my own fear because something is triggering me at this point? Or is this a fear that's being projected? And when I say fear being projected, at times the energies that are coming in are trying to distract us. So you're going to get another infiltrational stream that will trigger, will be a projected fear per se. So there's the 2 questions you have to ask, because as long as there's fear coming up or feeling of, you know, agitation and so forth, then you want to ask those 2 parts. So that's the thing. Is it, did I just get triggered because of my own fear, or am I just picking up a projected fear and I'm acknowledging it? So if that's the case, you know, you want to address it, but at the same time, you want to connect to the energy that feels very peaceful, that very energy, because that energy is that whole, what do you call it, the higher vibration, the full spectrum vibration that actually nurtures you, and it creates more changes within your operating system so that you're more aligned. And then you'll also notice that you may have other connections that may come about for you with how would I say connection, but a connection of having more of a clarity within yourself. And, you know, even like what you've experienced with the few people that came together, that now you're having other beings much more open to communicate with you, and you're more receptive. You're not going to be, you know, pushing it off or being afraid of it or anything of that nature.
Yeah. Yeah. Good. Thank you. And so you mentioned that there's a special, unique energy coming in the 30th. Is that what you were saying?
It's like a key energy that actually prepares us for the next phase that we're going into, starting from the first to the 14th is the first stage, and then we have another stage coming in. Like there's hardly any space anymore for any of it, because it's all, you know, one after the other sort of thing, and you get, each one is very specific. Some you will feel more impactful than others. So the whole theme for May is embracing. So right now, you know, it's been very, very powerfully for us to kind of segregate the energies, and for us to play wherever we feel most nurtured, and then the embracing of that experience becomes much more with ease with ourselves. And when we're talking about embracing, it's embracing all aspects of ourselves. We embrace our body, we embrace our human entity, we embrace our soul, we embrace our spirit of who we are as source, right? And then the game becomes more the game rather than the game dictates you. See, the thing is, that's the last thing you want to do, which we've done very well and we're very skilled at, is allowing the game to run us. The thing is for us to run the game. Yeah. So this is the thing. So the embodiment of it is embodying the game as is, and utilizing the what do you call it? The ride for you, for the way to advance things in a very powerful way, not only personally, but also on a collective scale.
Yeah. And there's a couple of people that come to mind, Romeo Barron, Jason Estes, and this is in regard to kind of the cycle of a month. And these are my words summarizing it. It's not their words, but they talk about it, when I've listened to them before, there's like a pattern in the month, and I'm not saying there is or there isn't. I look at Morgan and I, let's say the last 2-3 months, and I can say there's a little bit of a pattern here. It's like the month starts and this energy comes in, and then there's, 10 days of, a little bit all over the board, and, maybe that's not a good description, but there seems to be some type of integration that occurs around the 20th, give or take a couple of 2-3 days in a 3 or 4 day period. And then you get to the end, and then you get smacked again. Is there any type of cycle in the month to your knowledge, and is it going to continue that way if it does exist, in your opinion, or is it dissipating?
No. It's going to continue. As the cycles are going through, the cycles have tightened up so much that you're going from one to the next, because to expedite the changes that are going through. So the lull of, like saying, what we're talking about is saying, well, there's 3 days of disconnect sort of thing. So those 3 days are basically, sometimes people call it 3 days of darkness or whatever it is, but it's 3 days of not having all that impact in, what do you call it, downloading and processing of going on, so that we actually get time to integrate it. And what happens, this is the interesting thing, Todd, when we're getting all of this coming in, sometimes we're feeling so intensified within ourselves, certain things coming up and whatever experiences, then it stops. And then you have almost the reverse. It's like, oh man, it stopped. Like,
yeah,
what's
like
happening
where'd
here?
everybody go?
and so, but that's the time to integrate. It's the space between the breath. you know, the space
Yes.
between the breath.
Exactly. Yeah.
Because this is the cycle we follow, is you're taking in, okay? You have the space to integrate it, and then the breath out is really basically letting all of the stuff that's not of service or use anymore, that you know, part of you that's so it's that cycle, and it's energetic, and it's very tight now, where before, you know, it was introduced very lightly and longer stretches, and then the integration was really long stretches, and then the exhale was, you know, very slow. Now it's like, you know, you get bursts of it, and you know, it's like taking a deep breath, you know, and then the space in between normally now is normally like 3 days only, and then the exhale, you know, which is basically okay, and then you're basically shedding, you know, older versions of you. You're shedding aspects of yourself. You're shedding all of the attachments that you may have had to your old life. You're not dropping everything in an instant, but you're shedding more of it, because you're that way you could allow what came in to start to take root within yourself, so that you're actually changing within yourself. So that's the main cycle. So that's playing out in the months. So each of the months are tuned now, and of course, each month has its own flavor, but at the same time, there's cycles within it. And but at the same time, it can adjust, because what happens, Todd, it's very, you know, collectively we're doing it from a superconscious. We're actually monitoring the each experience that we're going through. So if you say, okay, I'm going to turn it up, it's like boiling water. You turn up the dial, and it's boiling very lightly. And say, we could use a little bit more things. So you can turn it up a little bit more. So at times you say, well, we're only going to go up to this impulse of energy coming in. But then it's like, it's still not nudging it enough. So we're going to turn up the heat a little bit more. So then you get an extra influx coming in at that point. But then that influx may cause it to overboil. So you bring that influx just to bring it to the right boil point, and then we're going to lower it, so that now you maintain it, and then you go through the cool down cycle. So I'm just using that as kind of a sampling of analogy type of thing. But so that's what we go through, and this is why we get these pulses, and each pulse is very, very specified for whatever purpose. Now, as much as I just want to share this with you, as much as that affects us all across the board in one way or another, a lot of these specific ones have more of a direct impact depending on what stage you are on your journey and what you have agreed to take on as part of your upgrade experience, and your role to facilitate the collective upgrade. So some people will feel a lot more, others will just feel very subtle and won't even notice what's going on, right? But others that are, so some people will light up even further because it's hitting that perfect frequency that they have in resonance, and it's like a receiver that's ready to pick that up, and then they will have it. And it could trigger so much more awareness, but also a new level of calmness and acceptance of, I see how this is all orchestrated. It's like all the dots come in, and all the little sequence comes in, and then you can see, I can see the perfection of this, how this plugs in, and all of a sudden, okay, I could see how I could do this and this and this and that, whatever it is. So each one that comes in, and so you may be in one frequency that you feel that one most impactful, the other one you just kind of feel it more on the subtle. So because you're not at that frequency. Others that have opened their spectrum more and are kind of really making you're going to feel each one much more, but the intensities will still vary. But at the same time, you'll pick up on all of them to some degree, because of the fact that you're more ready to say, okay, I want to, because a lot of times the energies that we take in is not just for ourselves, but you're also getting a sample so that you could see how you can facilitate others, or the fact that how you can transmit it through others through your own energetic energetic I can't think of the word now, but
That's good
anyways,
enough. Code,
the
yeah.
conduitness, if that's even a word,
Yeah.
of yourself in the connection of all that's connected on the planet, as we're all one here.
We'll take that word.
Yeah.
And you mentioned feeling more clarity, and I know this is not unique to me, and I'm really kind of hesitant to even bring it up, but because it might even sound a little arrogant, but it's not. It's actually very humble, so that's why I'm afraid to say anything. But and I think it's been slowly since the equinox, but certainly over the last 10, 14 days, this clarity, that's the closest word I could come to with it. But it's like as the mind starts to, and I'm talking about more of the supportive mind, not the chatter mind, but the mind's going, oh wow, this is how this works, or that's how. And there's almost like this thing coming in going, uh you don't even have to think about this. Like whatever you need is there, and this is like new to me. Like, I mean, I've know that I have access to infinite intelligence, and I can go looking for something, and most likely I'll find it if I stick with it. But this is a little bit different. This is like, to me, it's like, you get what you need when you need it. And so you can just, like, you don't have to do this anymore. You don't have to. I mean, you can sit around and have a coffee and talk to your wife about, hey, wow, this is happening, that's happening. But there's a part of me that's just almost getting bored with it. I don't know.
When you say that, which part do you feel that you're almost like getting bored with?
Well, like, and that's probably kind of harsh, but it's like old hat. Like,
Hmm.
um like, I know what's going on here. I've been here before. um I don't want to say I figured it out. It's not like that, but the information's there. It's something, and it's not a human thing I can really explain. But it's not bored in the sense of like get me out of here. It's just more like, okay, what's the next one? Like,
Hmm.
bring it, bring the next one. This is a memory that I have intact. That I understand what's happening. I'm not getting charged as much, or whatever. But I just bored as in the sense of, let's move on to the next thing.
Right. Okay. That now, yes. Thank you for that clarity, because that's, or that clarification, because that's the thing. It's about, okay, we got this coming in. Can we now use it? And
Mm,
let's get going on it. And many are now feeling, see, change. There's two ways to instigate and to feel change. One is, I don't like what's going on. Okay. And I want to change it to make it better, because there's got to be something better. And then there's the second part, or the other change, which is change. Okay, we're done with this experience. We really, really got a good feel for it. Let's use our capacities now to create something that is much more in alignment of the new beings that we are becoming.
mm,
Some people have talked about there's a new race, coming through us, right? Well, that new race or species or whatever it is just really the bringing in the rest of us being reactivated.
mm,
Like even the DNA is having all 12 brought in and going into that operating system. So even if we reactivate everything, we're not going to be that version that was designed 15,000 years ago. The basic operating system may have its a certain level of consistency with it and involvement in it, but we're up a new state, right? So that new part of us is coming in. So what you just described is, okay, we're getting it, we're understanding it. Let's move on. Let's get this thing going, because I have, it's like you getting all your tools and everything together, and you already got a blueprint of how things need to go, or I'm starting to put that together. Okay, let's get together. Let's start building this new way to play life and
mm.
experience and whatever else. So let's get going. Sometimes we may feel that, okay, it's moving a little slow, even though things are moving like super rapid.
Yeah.
You know, this is the interesting. I want to share this with you, if I may.
Yes, please.
We'll notice, okay, things were moving extremely slow some years ago, and we don't even notice it. Okay, we like even somebody saying, well, it's going to change in 10 years and or 20 years or 30 years, and it's like, well, I don't know like how far that's going to change, because that's how it was before.
Mm-hmm.
Now, as you become more enlightened, more access of your higher self, now it's like, this is doable and it's actually easy.
Yeah.
We just have to get on board. We need to push it. So now all of a sudden, even the fast pace that we're going through seems a little slow because you get it. So like, for example, there's so many times you may look at it and people say, oh, this is difficult. We got to do this. And it takes all these steps and whatever else. And you go, what? It's like simple. Introduce this, plug that in, and we're gone. We're done. Let's move on. But from the confused, ego mind that's still operating, he said, no. This takes stages and times and resistance and whatever else, and this can't unroll, whatever, right? For example, people talk about, well, okay, look at all the debt we're in and all of this stuff that's going on in the world, and we got to bring in this whole idea of bringing in certain other currencies or other, backed up whatever and so forth. And you're looking at it, and many now that are starting to become more and more access to their conscience, they go, what? The whole thing is fake. So, like, you can wipe out everybody's debt instantaneous like that. Wipe it off the freaking computer. You need $10 billion right now while we go through a transition, or $10 trillion, plug it in, distribute it, have everything going on. Forget about what is not necessary. Unplug, take it out. It's so simple to do. You could see it right now, even as a micro example. Everybody's at home. All of a sudden, the government has this money to distribute for, covering rent, covering this, whatever it is. Yeah, maybe small amount, but whatever. It's still something. And it's like, where'd all that come from? Oh, yeah. Where's the money for this and that coming from? Well, it just comes from anywhere. So just that as an example, you can change the whole structure with ease. It's like, no, just change a couple of things in there. But the ones that want to resist it say, hey, sorry, move over. Yeah, we're going to do it. And it's done. That's one thing, and many, many other things that are going. So what you're feeling is like, okay, I got it. Let's get rolling now. Let's come together. And this is why the thing with having a summit or group you've been actually receiving for a little while, I've received for a long time, but it came up again, specifically this morning. It was very powerful. And then I was talking to Kimberly and she said the same thing. Yeah, it's time for us to bring together some real like-minded people that are open to see how can we now start putting things together so that we can move this very easily without, looking at it and say, well, we've got to wait for all the old structures to collapse. Well, already start making the plan for the new structure, because that new structure already is filtering, even if it's not presented in a big way and only a small group is open to receive it. It's already creating that bridge, and that bridge will the other side of that bridge will just continue to expand, because as we become more aware and we see the more possibilities, bring in more people in. There's some amazing scientists out there. There's amazing, loving people that look into the medical and the knowledge part, and they're looking at different technologies and looking at different systems. The whole idea of all these structures, and say, well, we can change this, and this, and make it much more free so that we could actually do what we came here to do in a more aligned space. And that's the thing. Not to take a run on that, but anyways, I wanted to share that part of it because you made a good point.
Well, that was exactly, it's funny that you brought that example up, because that was the exact example that was in my head. I thought, well, wait a minute. Wait a minute. If they're passing out money and it's a very small amount, right? Why wouldn't they just, and if they're printing money for the banks or for the airlines or whatever, and they've done it before, they did it in 2008, why wouldn't they just print a boatload of money for everybody? Like, why wouldn't you do that? And, you know, somebody might say, well, you're going to create inflation. Well, you know, I mean, it just, that was the example I had in my head, you know, and again, that's just a physical representation of an energetic impression that I thought, well, yeah. And you explained it just perfectly.
And the
Yeah.
thing is, even with something like inflation, and say, well, inflation, really, you're looking at it, it's still, you know, you're allowing the base for everybody to have a baseline or whatever it is. That, again, that's only a bridging, because eventually that's not even needed. But for now, while we're having the bridging, you say, okay, we create a baseline, whatever it is, comes out of nowhere anyways, just plug it all in. You know, the prices, yeah, if somebody wants to jack up the prices, that's fine. Nobody's going to buy it, you know, or whatever going into it. Because this inflation thing, we've had inflation all the time, but look at something that was worth, you know, pennies at one point in time, now worth millions. It was funny because I was just looking back at my dad's, when he was alive. He had the first house he bought. I mean, he had paid like $8,000. Now those houses are selling just under $2 million today, right?
Wow.
Okay, so it's like $8,000, $2 million. Like that's like a huge. And I remember when he bought the second house some years later, and it was, I think it was like $14,000, and he was going, "Oh my God, the prices have gone great." And again, those houses are worth that much money. I mean, they're long gone. I mean, we weren't involved in any of that because that changed. But just to give you an example, but where did all this money come in? It just kept kind of plugged in. And when people say we're just creating more debt, and I go, to what? To who?
Yeah.
To
To
whatever.
what?
It's
To
like,
what?
come on, it's all made up.
The
It's
god
just
of
coming out of
money.
that thin air.
Yeah, that's funny.
But
That's actually very
this
funny.
is the thing.
Mm.
This is the part I was talking about, Todd, is that the groups come in and no longer looks at obstacles and say, oh, no, we have to have these stages come in and
Mm-mm.
introduce us slowly. No. You look
Mm-mm.
at it and say, what's stopping here? Like, even if you talk about free energy, just as an example, okay, you plug that in. Everybody's got a nice little power pack that they produces, doesn't use any fossil fuels, doesn't use any resources, nuclear or anything of that nature in each. But you can now take out the whole structure of water wires and towers and
Mm-mm.
transformers and generators and everything all off the planet. You bring in the technology that these cars don't have to be running on fossil fuels, but they don't even have to have wheels or anything like that, because they can hover and all of that stuff. That all exists. They've already created some of it that's not introduced. You take that and you now remove tremendous amount of infrastructure of that and the oil system, and say, because this whole thing about, oh, we got to create an economy, right? And we have to have jobs. Under what operating system is that?
Yeah.
What is the governing thought form behind that? And we're looking at it and say, it's not about creating jobs. Why does anybody want a job? Well, because they need to survive, because they're programmed to survive, and the only way they can have resources if they go do something. But the
Right.
thing is, years ago, I said this about maybe 2 decades ago, Todd,
Mm.
and I'm sure you can relate with this. And I said, look around. How much of what is being done as jobs are actually things that we really are supporting humanity versus make work projects,
Yeah.
with the illusion that we all have to have a job? Like somebody says, I remember years ago, they were saying it, and I've heard it up to a few years ago. Well, you have to be productive in society. And I had some people that were in different professions, and they were judging other people, and they had come to one of my workshops at the time, in person, live workshops, and they were saying, oh, and they were taking, looking at the kids and stuff like that they don't want to work, and they're not going to be productive, they're not contributing. That's the words I heard. They're not contributing to society, to the world, right? And I'm going, okay, let's do an exercise here. How many people here are just pushing papers around, doing all these structures for different organizations, groups, and so forth? Now, how much of that is actually contributing for the well-being of humanity? Or are we just kind of shuffling layers upon layers upon layers just so that we are under the illusion, by the way, that's the Lucifer operating system, the illusion that we have to all be doing something, because nobody, and this is the other thing, everybody says that we're going to have all this anarchy because if people are not working, then, you know, it's all going to fall apart. And I go, no, 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 no. Nobody wants to do absolutely nothing. Nobody.
Right.
Everybody can contribute something, but contribute because it has to feel meaningful to them. It's contributing because they're enjoying it, not because I got to put my 9 to 5 or whatever for the next 50 years, 40 years, 30 years before I can actually have a space in between. See, these again are all operating systems that we now look at it from a conscious level and say, how much of this do we have to support? Because the thing is, if we get over the idea that we have to create more jobs and build the economy, then you can now say back, okay, what's the obstacle here? Money? Okay, let's create a certain balance for the time being as we go through the process of taking down what's not necessary. We don't need disposability of something that you replicate 10, 20 times, and then try to do it as cheap as possible using the most, toxic, whatever you want to call it. You start really looking at it and say, okay, what is really needed? Can we build something that is actually useful and last and can be utilized and that does not take an impact on the planet or another human being? It's like, okay, don't introduce this because it's toxic, but use it, but don't you dare sniff it or whatever, or don't touch it too long because it's leaching out whatever. That wouldn't even be in a consideration because I needed to make it 15 cents cheaper or whatever it may be. You're now looking and say, okay, let's create if a writing instrument is what is necessary. I'm just using it as an example. If that's a writing instrument we do, let's create a writing instrument that is actually providing what it needs to provide, and it lasts, and it can be, recharged, whatever it is, without creating all the waste and whatever else that we've normally have done. So you look at it because you unplug different things out of the system that we believe has to be intact. And that's where a lot of the fear comes in. The fear is, if we don't, keep going, everything's going to collapse. Well,
if we don't buy enough toilet paper, we're in trouble.
Well, yeah, exactly. No,
I get it. And I think that's part of the gift of what's happened, because people are looking at things going, well, how much more of this can I take? It just, it's working, whatever, it's working. So to your knowledge, is it too early to share what comes in May? Is it too early?
It depends what you want to know about it. I mean, the theme is the theme of embracing all of yourselves. The pulses of energies that are coming in, like I said, the next wave is the 1st to the 14th. That one is helping with the embracing. There's going to be some other stuff plugged in, which I don't have all the details on along the way. So there's going to be some individual bursts. So there's going to be some additional dates as we go along. But those are bursts. The second half of it is more of an integration of that embracement energetic. And so we're going to have some very specific time dates. I don't have those specifics. They don't always give me the thing, and some of the insights I get it, but then no, you don't talk about it or whatever it is, and it's like whatever, because it's not because we're keeping it, it's being kept as a secret. It's like it's being fine-tuned. We're gonna
it's not ready.
Pulse, see, and then adjust accordingly. And this is the thing. This is the most I've seen that there's such a close attention for each burst to go out, what the feedback comes back from the collective.
Wow. Okay? That's a good sign though, isn't it?
It is, because there's so much attention played to that. They say, okay, all right, we can ramp it up a little bit more, or we can adjust it, plug this in, whatever it is. So it keeps the motion going without ever putting anything out of it.
It's that same pattern of energy you're talking about that we could actually do here, instead of saying, oh, we got to do this in phases. It's got to be real slow, but you actually implement something and see the results and immediately take your next step before you take your next step, which could even be like the next day. I mean, this is good. If that's happening at that level, I got to believe that it's going to start to infiltrate itself into the physical aspects that we are of those aspects that are doing it. um yeah, that's a
Yeah,
good
there's a
sign. I'm
major
happy to hear that.
yeah, there's a major intent to make a really impactful 2020. In the sense, when I say impactful, it is to really set the pace for this year, to carry on for the next 2 years after that, because it's very instrumental for the 3 years from 2020 to the end of 2022 to really purge out and really stabilize things so that we are more integrated in organic 3D and organic 5D by the time we enter 2023. So even though that we're there, the platform's there, but we're still clearing out a lot of the structures, because it's not only Todd, it's not only what we're purging within ourselves, but what we're purging in part of our systems that we have in place. A lot of the systems that we have in place, and when I'm talking about governmental, educational, all the monetary systems, all of these systems are in need to go and to be upgraded. Okay,
Yeah.
and the only way that's going to change is that people that are more aligned with that deeper understanding, working together with others to start implementing different, and we may be using some of the people that are already existing in different structure or systems,
Mm.
but others will be replaced along the way because they'll step down, say, no, I can't handle that. So then new people will be assigned, but those are all transitional as we go along. So
Mm.
this year has been marked as very impactful to set the pace and also to set the framework for the work that's also being done for 21, 22. And then, entering into that other phase where we're more integrated in organic 3D and organic 5D. And then that window is only 12 years max. It could be faster.
Yeah.
That, we get to experience that part of the split. And then it's all merging into fifth. And then from that, we have up to about 5 years. So by 2040, you're basically, everybody's integrated that are still playing in the playground, whoever decides to be here, fully integrated into fifth dimensional consciousness. And then a lot more is created in our playground. And also the transformation to bodies will go. So at that point in time, our bodies will be even much more malleable and much more, the age thing and deterioration and stuff like that will most of it cease anyways, and have already started to reverse at that point.
That's good
So
news. That's
yeah,
good
yeah.
news.
So
I'm graying fast.
we
So
all are.
so embracement, that sounds really encouraging too. If that's the general energy of May or the theme of May, we had a new guest on today, and forgive me, I can't remember her name, but she had a fascinating story. When I asked her the famous Soul Speak 5D question, when did you wake up? She said, well, my answer would have been different up until 3 days ago. And here we go again with the weekend's energy, or the 23rd to the 29th. And so she went on to tell her story, and it was quite fascinating. I won't go into the details, but in a nutshell, she said, I found this peace. And she wasn't BSing either. You could see it. I mean, the truth is a frequency we all recognize, whether we like it or not. But I mean, she said, I found this peace, and it's, and I said, well, let me restate that. Are you saying that you truly accept all points of darkness, all points of light, and you've actually, and she said, yes, I have. So when you said embracement of all your own aspects, I guess that would play out into the collective too. And maybe, I don't know, I'm just having a conversation. I'm not, maybe speculating a little bit that there'll be more. Do you see this possibly there will be more acceptance of the aspects of dark and light that are playing out on the global stage, or maybe even as a consequence of that later on? I mean, do you think those seeds are planted? Do you think that people are actually going to be going to that level?
Yes, yes. The seeds are being planted. The activation stuff is being planted. So in fact, that will become much more apparent. The sense of because as long as you're denying any aspect of it, any sides of it, then you're still creating polarity and you're not in that peace state. You can't experience like the guest you had on. In that sense of peace, you see perfection. In that sense of peace, you see, oh, everything is possible in a way, and you're now embracing all parts of it, because it doesn't matter what program it is. It's still source. It doesn't matter which program. It's still part of you. You know, part of the makeup. It doesn't mean that you're going to utilize those programs in one way or another, because each program, because even that operating system, okay, the contributors have pulled off, okay? The ones that are left here are breaking down. So a lot of the rituals and stuff like that, whatever's going on, but it's regressing throughout the whole cosmos. It's, you know, in our galaxy, a lot of them are going off planet of the planets, or regrouping so that they're not longer involved where there's already higher vibrations. So say, okay, we're gonna carry this within our little group, but eventually that's going to dissolve because it's not going to be necessary any longer, right? So that's already started. But the thing is, the way to do it, and this is why I've always talked about neutrality and whatever else, and it was very instrumental, because that was the actual encodement that I carry within. And when I say carry, it's not Franco, but the soul brought in as the seed, as Yeshua brought in the seed of love, which is source creation. The oneness is harnessing all of source creation, which is basically seeing that you embrace everything, what you call light, dark, right, wrong, good, bad, and see it as all perfection. Then it just becomes one beautiful field, and it's not accentuated as pushed out. Then that embracing is, like I said, you start embracing, because a lot of people don't embrace their bodies. They don't embrace their human entity. They don't embrace their mind. They don't embrace their soul. That's the first part. They don't embrace each other. And when I say embrace, meaning accepting that there are playmates, aspects of yourself that have come to play, and that you now see the perfection of whatever they're playing. Now, you may not have a certain preference, a certain point in time to play with certain individuals at their level. And there's a respect for that, even though it doesn't look like it at an ego perspective. You say, okay, well, you're not going to say to somebody, say, oh, you're playing in the dark, you're doing whatever. You see them and say, I love you, I thank you. You go out and play. Okay, do what you have to do. Do whatever you feel is in resonance with you. And I love you no matter what. But I'm not just going to participate at this point in time while you're doing that, because I want to give you the freedom to play. I want to give you the freedom to stay in the depth. I don't want to dilute it with my energy, and I don't want to, interfere in your. I want you to have the full experience. I'm not going to hold your hand along the way, because a lot of people go into the fact is, oh, I got to help I got to, get involved in people's lives, and I got to change people's lives. No. You're there to be you. You're there to share what you share. But if they come to you, but from a genuine point, okay, I want to have an understanding. I'm starting to notice I need to look at something different. Then you can share, because now they're coming in open. I'm open to receive, rather than I'm closed and you're seeing it and say, hey, open up the door. I got to put this in you. I got to open you up because you're on the wrong track. No. You see, oh, okay, you're closed. That's great. Go play in your closure. Go play in your polarity. That's great. You don't even have to say it in words, but I'm just saying you just allow them. You love them for who they are, because there are aspects of you finishing that part of it. So that's the embracing. So, the question comes up is, how do we change the world? By accepting its current state, see it in a loving way, and then see how we can now upgrade it. That's it.
Kind of like ourselves.
We don't want to go into fixing mode. We don't want to go into judging that this is, like, for example, how do you take all of these negative role players that are, the pedophiles and whatever else, all of this stuff that's going on there? How do we make that change happen if we demonize them and we see them and we hate them and we have to torture them, whatever? You're not making impact and change. That's what the whole embracing is like, okay, that's what you're doing, that's what you're playing, or whatever. We love you for that. And then with that energy, it already starts to change with them, because they don't have the fuel, because it's like there's a fire
Yeah.
and you're coming in and you're now angry. You're coming in with a hose. There's no water in the hose. It's got gasoline instead.
Yeah.
So you're making the fire bigger. Yeah, you could say, well, we're going to accentuate the fire and let it burn out even faster, but you're just throwing fuel. The thing is, as long as the hose is spewing out fuel, it can feed back to you, in a sense, because
It does feedback to you.
yeah.
I mean,
So
I think that's why a lot of us learned quick, because we had a lot of those episodes where we got burned.
correct.
But no, that's good too, because my question to myself would be, okay, if I've got this information, what am I going to focus on in May? And I think it would just it makes sense that I think if most of us have enough information to know, we may not be there, but we know that oneness is oneness. So I can be more open, like I can be more open to the fact that I'm not as neutral as I think, or or whatever the case is. And I love what you said too, because you brought it down to the individual, which I think is what kind of I don't know what the right word is. The issue that I have, which I know is my issue, with this over identification with certain movements and stuff that are making bad guys out. That it's disempowering. It scares me, because and I don't feel like I'm over there, but I'm like going, how's this going to work? Now I can see it better as you've explained it. But
Yeah, like the
yeah.
groups. Let me just share something with that. Great point. Thank you, Todd. The thing is, you can get together in a group and say, okay, this is what we see. We're not supporting the old narrative. We're not supporting it. We're not going to fight it. You're still going to be in a state of love. We're just sharing our viewpoint or whatever it is. And you're going in with that. You're making a statement that we're not going to support the existing, whatever that is, whatever's going on. We're not going to support it. We're not consenting any longer for it. These are the changes we would like to see. And going in with that, and let the masses portray that, because then even the ones that are, say, the police or the military or whatever, that's supposed to keep law and order for the groups at that point in time, can feel not that they have to protect and fight. It's like their hearts start to melt or
Right.
dissolve, their
Right.
shields start going down. It's
Yeah.
like, we're just not consenting. But
No.
you're not coming in as, oh, the ones that hold up the fort, meaning the guards or military or whatever, are evil too, because they're supporting those
Yeah.
evil corporations, evil governments,
Yeah.
evil this. You're not going to see that and say, listen, the statement we're making is we do not agree and
Yeah.
support and consent to this any longer.
Yeah, that's what I was talking about. It's like, because so if somebody comes out and says, oh my God, they're going to chip us all, they're going to vaccinate us all. By the same token, the same person could turn that around and say, we're not going to comply with this. We're going to find another way, with our higher aspects helping us. In other words, the talk, the self-talk, the collective self-talk, the energy that we're setting out there in so many different ways. It's but like you said at the top of the show, the polarization is being accentuated. uh Both extremes are being agitated because they're being disassembled, and I guess this is how it works. But you're right too, because like even if you take like the police or the military, that's what this guest and I were talking about this morning. That that's the on one hand, the crazy thing and the profound thing is that as I do this work on the inside, uh, I'm changing them. But in a sense,
Exactly.
I'm changing them. It's not like I have to go tell them, hey, you're standing before, you're standing and enforcing this or enforcing that, and that means this and that means that. You don't even have to say anything. You just own your shift. you know. I mean, and I think this whole thing about embracement is another really good sign. And the other reason I say that is I'm not asking you about it. Is because I know you said and you and others actually, that June's going to be prolific. You know, we're going to move and of course we all know we got to go through the crud to get to the good stuff. So that's a good sign too.
Yeah, absolutely. And I wanted to make one little quick point. I don't. It's interesting because this relates to what we were talking about earlier. That a lot of people, when they're going through the different stages where, I'm fed up with this whole game, whatever it is, and the ones that do actually choose to check out, okay, and say, oh, I would never return here or anything of that nature. I want no part of this, and I want to go home, whatever that is. I found with the ones that I've worked with over the years that once they're outside of the operating system of the ego, meaning that they're no longer in form and they're in non-form as soul, their whole viewpoints changes so much that, oh, I want another run at this, but this time I'm going to aim it from this direction and I want to bring this part to it and whatever else. And the judgment they may have had before departure is no longer there because that whole thing, because the question came up a few times. It's like, who the hell would want to come back to this hellhole or whatever, whatever wording they were saying, coming back to planet Earth again. Oh, that man, one time, that's enough, and a lot of them don't realize how many times they may have been here, but, and depends on what part of it is talking to. But you will see that it's a very different perspective once that operating system is not in place. And it's like, oh, it's exciting. What are we going to do next, right? And this, believe it or not, we are going to be experiencing without leaving the form. And that's what we're doing. Yeah. We're going to, the part of the embracing, and then what leads to June and on, is the excitement of what we can do now without embodying and repositioning for a re-entry. And it can be a re-entry through as a drop-in or a re-entry as a rebirth.
Man. That's beautiful. You just gave us a clue. So I
didn't say anything. I said nothing.
Yeah, no, but I got it. I picked up on it. I got that. So, and that makes sense too, because I get mixed up where I get what from who or what comes in or what Morgan said or what I got. But that I think it was us that during this time, and I would say it was the last few days, that we would have availability, more and more availability. I think it was Jason S. that says in his explanation, we're going from 10% disclosure to 30% disclosure by the end of the month. In Morgan's, it was that there would be more skill and abilities and memories available to us. So that would jive with what you're saying. We're not disincarnating. We're just actually having the experience, the value of the experience given to us without having to disincarnate. And that's incredible. That's fantastic, man. That's just like, whoa. Yeah. Because I don't want to go again. I just stay. I want to stay and then get to that point, get my hair black again, my beard's black, and my skin's not wrinkled.
But the thing is, it's interesting because I've seen some older pictures and I'm looking at it and I go, for some reason, it looks wiser to have the grays.
I do,
and a few lines. What
I'm okay
we call
with it,
experience actually. Marks and whatever else. Somebody had asked me a while back and said, well, how come you do what you do, you talk what you talk, you share what you share, your vibration is whatever, and you're aging. I go, well, I wasn't aging until 15 years ago, because I was in my 50s or late 40s, and I didn't even look like I was in my early 20s. I was asked for ID going to places, not that I drank, because I never did. But, if I was going to a place where they actually allowed drinking, and I was in my 30s and 40s, and I'm asking, people are asking me, do you have any idea that you're 18 or 21, whatever? And I'm going, it was always humorous at that point in time. And then at some point I said, well, maybe I should age a little bit. So I turned it on. I haven't been able to turn it off ever since. All of a sudden it's like, holy shit, what's happening? I still don't feel or look or whatever as in my 60s, but it's still at the same time, why leave at this point?
Yeah.
Because look at the progress you made. You've
Just getting
now
good.
tuned the body. And this is one of some of my alien playmates, said, when I said, my body was falling apart because of some health issues and whatever else. And I said, just give me another body. That's all, I'll just drop into another physicality. They said, no, it doesn't work that way, that easily, because, look at how much encodements that your body had to go through carrying that level of consciousness and stuff that I'm sharing now, which I've had for a very long time within my operating system. But, for somebody to be that open-minded and their body to handle that, it's not that common. It's becoming a little bit more available, but it's not that common. And then anybody that actually has enough capacity to be able to bridge it, they have no interest of leaving because it's just getting fun. So
That's right.
So at that point it says, okay, yeah. So I could see it. Why leave? I mean,
Yeah,
let's carry on where we're at. This is like getting really, really exciting now.
I know it is. Yeah. Yeah. I just want to restate. We have a lot more people on than we did earlier. And I just want to restate again that Kimberly and Franco have put out this incredible series, Advancing Consciousness. And it's incredible and it's free. And, we are moving into an equal energy exchange. And we all do have to embody, it helps to embody certainly anything and everything that we're learning. And I'm just making a plea for people to support you and Kimberly in the work that you're doing, because it's vital. And I believe it's going to be utilized for a long, long time by many, many people. So I want to say thank you for building these archives. I just wanted to tell you too, I should tell you this privately, but my brother sent me an 8 terabyte hard drive. So I'm going to be downloading all your stuff while we're here for another month. And thank you to our beloved sister who's allowed this. And so we're here for another month. So I'm going to work and building everything. So it's all going to be ready. And I'm going to, download all your stuff. So thank you. I just hope I can download it as fast enough to keep up with you as fast as you're putting them out.
We're coming out 3+ times a week. The next one's tomorrow night at 4 p.m. Eastern time. It'll be part 4, I think. Yeah, part 4 of the
18.
Of 18.
Yeah.
And so the reason that it's all being offered on several platforms, so it is streaming on Facebook, and I have it on 3 pages, and one page is a group page, which is called Advancing Consciousness Series. It's streamed on YouTube under the channel called Advancing Consciousness Series. It's on Vimeo under the channel called Advancing Consciousness Series. It's also being streamed onto Twitter and also LinkedIn. We're making it all free, and we're making it right now because it's so important. My higher self soul said, okay, we can't have any obstacles. So we're not going to be selling tickets and all of this stuff like you do your workshops. We're going to put this stuff out. That's it. And then let people just contribute to support the work and whatever else, because we're still living in a monetary system at the moment. But not to be concerned with that. It's just keep putting it out. And then we're going to get deeper into it. So the point of all of this series is to really trigger the memory that we have, and also to give us the fundamental understanding so that we actually can move through this a lot easier in a larger group agreement. I'm not saying anything that people already don't know at some level within themselves.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe they playing the game of life has, diminished that access point. And many are getting that memory coming up and that knowing. The other thing is too, right now, it's so instrumental to have a clarity, because there's so much polarity, the left ring, right ring, right, wrong, good, bad, and the disclosure coming in. It was so important and made it very clear. And this landed on me instantaneously from a Friday to launch on a Tuesday, or a Monday, actually it was. And it was just like, okay, we're doing it, whatever. We didn't even have the technology to be able to do it. And we piecemealed and whatever else. And we're still piecemealing, but we're getting better at it. So it actually has been a little bit more stable. But the whole point was, we need to access that clarity that we kind of feel inside, but the mind, you know, the ego mind's going to say, oh, these are bad, this is that. And disclosure, let's look at the big picture. Even the lockdown, I'll give you a little insight. And I think I may even gave you the clue before. This whole, you know, thing, virus, whatever you want to call it, this encodement, which is all an encodement, a protein stored encodement, and how it's designed and everything else. And a lot of the stuff is said is you know, stretched and reshaped and whatever else. Mm-hmm. But it had a bigger intent. The bigger intent was really to impact people and to knock out a lot of people off the planet, right? In a sense. However, collectively said, no. We did the simulations, and the simulation showed that we would have to actually regress instead of advance. So we're not going to let it roll out that way. We're going to let it roll out, but we're going to minimize it to a point where it's lower than a common cold. Yeah. And it's not going to have the impact. And then the guys that are running the show that's doing all of this could go to town and creating all of this, but we're going to use this lockdown. We're going to use this opportunity for people to start to connect with themselves and to bring certain fears up and all of this other stuff, and also get to the point of saying, okay, you know something? And this is what we're starting to notice. People are gathering together, going into the cities and saying, hey, we're done with the lockdown. We're done with this and whatever else, because people are going into that empowered state, giving them time to connect with themselves, getting time to connect with others, to accentuate fear so we can get rid of the fear, just to say, I'm not going to feed this any longer. And it is also diminishing. This is the thing, Todd. The level of crippleization, I made that word up, crippleization, or being crippled in the sense of fear, is actually losing the power within it. People are starting to branch out a little more. Maybe I should just look at something. Maybe I should spend a little bit more time outside. Yeah, maybe I can't go in groups or whatever it is. But, you know, more people are feeling that. Why? Because they're breaking outside of that, or at least creating openings within those intensities of the purpose. So is there a higher purpose for all this? The intent, the original agenda, the narrative and so forth was to lower the frequency, to self-restrict, but it actually is the other way. Yeah. Okay, we're going to experience that, but we're also coming up. And also the other thing that was key, and I know we talked about it at one point, is that to break the patterns of every day, I got to get in my car, drive wherever, go do these other things. And now you're looking at other options. Oh, I can do some more stuff online. Oh, you know, I could actually work from home, or I can do other things. And then, you know, even the returning will look, they're going to see whatever they were doing differently and say, okay, there's got to be another option here. There's got to be another thing. So these are all been plugged in as opportunities that we're using with this time. So you see the big picture. So this is why it was instrumental. Say, okay, we need to understand this, and we have to understand with the disclosure, this whole, you know, Luciferian stuff coming up, and say, okay, now it's time that people actually understand what it really is. Is it this demonized, you know, thing? No, it's an operating system that creates the most unconscious state to the point of self-destruction. But, you know, the actual codes which exist within our operating system, even though we don't have that operating system in our own physicality, but the ego carries the codes to play that what we call the satanic codes, which is basically self-destruction, self-mutation, self-compromisation, whatever, which we're starting to realize, oh, that's pretty active there. Okay, we can start turning all of that off. It's just so they will understand it. But as you notice, Todd, when I share all this stuff, I don't put any fear in anybody. We really want to look at it as, okay, this is the game. This is what we're in, what we're going to do with it, how we're going to move forward from this, because we are very powerful beings. And this is the part we forget, how powerful we are, how much we are involved in the creation of this journey.
Yeah. And
that's the purpose.
A couple of comments people made about that Series 18. But yeah, that's what I love all the stuff you do. And I'm not easy. I'm not easy at all to I've got ADHD or something. I can't really sit through much, but these last ones were really good, and for that reason, because something was being explained using a nomenclature that I think had a lot of buzzwords that people could relate to and needed to kind of put into alignment. And because it was conveyed without fear programming, because it was conveyed, very neutral. I think it was very powerful. Definitely very powerful. The other thing that you just said that I think I look to see more and more people becoming aware of, and that is when this virus was kind of presented, there was another, we all had a say so, I guess, in so many words. And we said, you can go ahead and do it, but here's how it's going to be done. So that tells me that in the energetic field, we're already exercising our sovereignty, and then it's of course being transferred to our human experience. But the more of us that really come into that awareness that we actually are doing this, we're actually involved, that nothing's being done to us, no,
Correct.
and that we're actually shifting this thing now. And that to me is something that, along with everything else, I would imagine is going to become maybe not consciously as much, but the code will be available. That knowing will be there, just like you're talking about with people, expanding their sovereignty and going out and saying, questioning things and saying, no, 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 I don't think we're going to continue to do this. And then you get reports like in Sweden where they had no lockdown at all, and they have, what was the terminology they used, but they had they've had no issues. If you want to get right down to it, so this is great. I've always liked talking to you. Of course, you know that you're my hero. And
You're my hero too. We're
yeah,
each
yeah.
other's hero from the whole perspective of the world, and I love all the people that are, for me, it's not important who follows my work or not or anything like that. I just share openly because this is tools that I have available that I'm just giving to people so that they can actually use more of the for themselves. So really, it's all stuff for themselves. So,
Yeah.
and we're doing this all together. This is the key thing. I mean, uh, like somebody asked me at one point and says, why are you sharing all this stuff? I go, well, I know all this stuff, or I have access to all of this stuff, but what use is it to me if it's not shared with everybody? Because we're doing this together. We're doing this together. It's not like, oh, I want to be superior or anything. No, not at all. It's about, let's all embrace each other. Let's go out and really transform the human experience and the world together.
Yeah.
Because you said very instrumentally the tools right there. We already are exercising our sovereignty. We are involved on what rolls out and doesn't roll out. It's not like you said, it's not being tossed at us. We're saying, okay, we want to participate. This is how we're going to participate. We're agreeing for this to come only at this stage. Okay, not further, because depending on how we are collectively, we can react. Because when simulations are done, something like an idea is launched, an idea like a rollout. For example, say the virus. It came out in its original agenda, its original construct, and it wiped out 2/3 of the population, or 1/3 of the population, or half the population, whatever it is. That impact was measured, and it showed that instead of the opportunity of going up, it was the opportunity to really lower the frequency. Survival on steroids.
Mm-hmm.
Fear on steroids. Disempowerment on steroids. And it's like, okay, that doesn't work. Let's tweak it a little more. And let's see. Still not good enough. Until the tweak that it was so diluted, it was just enough to orchestrate what we've been experiencing, because that gave the opportunity to have the split be much more powerful, and the opportunity to do what would be highly beneficial and elevate us further. So this, what we're going through, is actually very empowering for all of us to really step things up. So this is like powerful instrumentation of orchestration and launching in such perfection, Todd. It's just when you see it from that perspective, you say, how much more perfect could it have been?
I know.
Of course, we
only
can always
it's
elevate
only getting
further.
better, and that's great. That's great evidence too. You know, the fact that we chose to not go back, not regress anymore. You know, this is getting really exciting. Thank you, Franco, and thank you, Kimberly. And I look forward to doing it again soon, and probably a couple times in May, hopefully. And let me know if there's anything I can do to help you.
Yes, thank you. I appreciate it. Thank you for this time, and I always love playing with you too. You really have a nice understanding of things, and we can really communicate. And the way you share it, and I share it, and so forth, and others too, just gives the right mix for everybody to get the messages in different things. So each of your people that you bring in and so forth are bringing a piece of the puzzle. Everybody's got a piece of the puzzle. All of us are doing it. It's not just one, it's all the pieces. And those pieces are all instrumental for all the various people to get exactly what they need to kind of stimulate what they know and just launch perfectly. So thank you.
True that. You're very welcome. I'll see you next time. Take care.
I think we're in the beginning of May sometime where Morgan has arranged. So we'll again connect. I think it's the 11th of May, if I remember correctly.
Sounds good to me. Take care. All right.
Take care.
Bye-bye.